Good day everyone. For today's topic, we will discuss about culture definition, function, characteristic, elements of culture. Culture consists of all learned normative behavior patterns, that is all shared ways or patterns of thinking and feeling as well as doing. Word kultura related to cult or worship. And in its broadest sense, the term refers to the result of human interaction. Society, culture comprises the shared values, understanding, assumption, and goals that are learned from earlier generation, imposed by present member of society, and passed on to succeeding generation. So, culture was molded by all shared ways of human behavior, thinking, and feeling, meaning the result of human interaction. It was developed by earlier generation from the shared values, understanding, assumption, and goals that now presenting by present society. Sometimes an individual is described as a highly cultured person, meaning that the person in question has certain features such as her speech, manner, and taste for literature, music, or painting which distinguish him from others. Ma-identify mo rin ang isang tao kung siya ay isang highly cultured person. Dahil the way siya magsasalita, yung pag-ugali, taste of literature, music, and paint. However, this is not the sense in which the word culture is used and understood in social science. Sometimes culture is used in popular discourse to refer to our celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaks of cultural show. In this sense, culture is identified with aesthetics or fine arts such as dance, music, or drama. We use culture as entertainment and celebration called cultural show. At this way, we can show to people some of culture we have by presenting them as dance, music, or drama. Culture is used in special sense in anthropology and sociology. It refers to the sum of human beings, life-way behavior, beliefs, feeling, and thoughts. Means kabuuan ng life-way behavior, belief, feeling, and thoughts. It connotes means imply. Everything acquired by them as social being. Culture has been defined in several ways. There is no consensus among sociologists and anthropologists regarding the definition of culture. Some writers add to this definition some of the important other capabilities and habits, such as language and the techniques for making and using tools. Meaning of culture. Culture is a comprehensive and encompassing, means pagkaunawa at napaloob. Term that includes what we have learned about our history, values, moral, custom, art, and habits. Here in this section, we shall mention quite a few definitions of culture and analyze this form a clear picture of a culture that may help us formulate appropriate marketing strategies. A culture is the complex of values, ideas, attitude, and other meaningful symbols created by people to shape human behavior and the artifact of that behavior as they are transmitted from one generation to the next. The above definition highlights three important attributes of an individual culture. First, it is created by people evolving due to the human activities and passed on to succeeding generation. So, nabuo ito ng tao ang kultura sa pamamagitan ng human activities. For example, yung mga babae dati is nagtatrabaho sa bahay lamang. Pinagsilbihan ang mga asawa nila. Tapos, ang mga lalaki, sila yung naghahanap buhay. Hanggang napasa-pasa na ito sa sumusunod na henerasyon. Second, the impact of cultural influence is both intangible and tangible. People's basic attitude and values are direct result of their cultural environment. Beliefs in freedom of speech and choice, heterosexuality, and God are product of human action. So, ang impact ng cultural influence ay both intangible, means hindi nahawakan, at tangible naman ay nahawakan. So, yung pag-uugali at halaga ay direct na kultura sa kanilang environment. Like for example, bawal ka makihalubilo sa mga laki kasi pangit tignan sa mga tao dahil yun ang environment nila ang o pag-uugali. Malaya ka ring magsalita at gumawa ng desisyon. Heterosexuality means the quality of characteristic of being attracted solely to people of the opposite sex. Yung makagusto ka sa opposite sex. Third, the cultural environment evolves and it is most often evolves over lengthy periods. Change in women roles in the home and business and the outward desire for leisure time have come about quite slowly. Other changes, however, occur quicker. Ang kultura natin ay nag-evolve kada paglipas ng panahon. Like for example, ang role ng babae is sa bahay lamang noon. Nagtatrabaho, pero ngayon, pwede nang gawin ng babae ang magtrabaho at kumita. Katulad ng mga lalaki ngayon, noon at ngayon. Mas nagiging modern na tayo. Mayroon ng equality gender kung saan wala na sa kasarian binabase ang pagtatrabaho. Definition of culture. Culture has been defined in some way, but most simply as the learned and shared behavior of a community of interacting human beings. Culture can define in many ways, but it is how we interact and what we learn and shared behavior toward others or in the community. According to British anthropologist Edward Taylor, culture is that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, arts, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society.
3 aspects of culture. The first aspect is culture is a pattern of behavior. Culture refers basically to the style of behavior. This style is found to be present in the behaviors of the majority of people living in a particular culture. For example, a person behaves in such a way simple. That is what the culture tells him or her to do. On the other hand, behavior defines culture because the way a person acts is a reflection of his or her culture. The second aspect is culture is learned. The second important aspect relating to culture is that we learn it through experiences and interactions. For example, a South Asian child grows in a European country among the Europeans and will definitely not learn South Asian cultural aspects, but the European cultural aspects influencing his behavior. It clearly indicates that culture is learned, not present from birth. And the third aspect is culture is transmitted from one generation to the next. We have in our culture in terms of values, ideas, attitudes, symbols, artifacts, or others, and we are likely to conform to those. This process of transmitting the cultural elements from one generation to the next is known as enculturation. 3 components of culture. First component is cognitive component. The basic component of any culture is one relating to people's knowledge about the universe, creation, and existence. This aspect is based on either people's observation or on certain punctual evidence that they have. For example, a person or individual of a backward culture believes in gods, superstitions, and other objects as a part of their cognitive aspect. But in technology advanced society, the cognitive aspect is based on scientific experiments. Second, material component. Another important component of any given culture is the material feature of society. It consists of all the tangible things that human beings make, use, and give value to. The material component varies from culture to culture as the cognitive component. Example of material component are tools, weapons, machines, buildings, clothing, and any other ponderable objects produced or used by humans. Last component is normative component. The other important component of a culture is the normative component. The normative component is composed of society's values and norms, which guides and regulates behavior. In other words, it consists of the values, beliefs, and rules by which society directs people's interactions. Understanding culture means understanding its values.
Characteristics of culture. All organizations have a culture because they are embedded in a specific societal cultures and are part of them. The following characteristics of cultures are learned behavior. Learned behavior represents an essential component of culture. This sense can mean almost anything, from the way we dress to the way we speak and to the food we choose to eat, because no one is born with an inherent understanding of their culture. All of us learn it as we grow. The next one is culture is abstract. Culture exists in the minds or habits of the members of society. Culture is the shared ways of doing and thinking. Next is culture includes attitudes, values, and knowledge. Next one, culture also includes material objects. It is the tools, weapons, utensils, machines, ornaments, and art, buildings, monuments, written records, religious images, clothing, and any other ponderable objects produced or used by humans. The next one is culture is shared by the members of society. Horton and Hunt definition of culture. Culture is everything which is socially shared and learned by the members of a society, which means culture is something that's shared and learned of every members of a society, including beliefs, art, religion, values, norms, ideas, law, thought, knowledge, custom, and other capabilities acquired by a man as a member of a society. Next one is culture is super organic. Aspects of a culture that are conceived as being superior to the individual members of the society. Next is culture is pervasive. It touches every aspect of life, like an individual is more or less consistent pattern of thought and action. Next, culture is a way of life. The behaviors, beliefs, values, symbols that they accept generally without thinking about them, and that are passed along by communication and imitation from one generation to the next. The next one is culture is idealistic. It embodies the ideals, values, and norms of the group. It sets ideals, goals before individuals which is worth attaining. In other words, culture is the sum total of ideals and values of individuals in society. Next is culture is transmitted among members of society. This means that the cultural ways are learned by persons from persons. Many of them are handed down by one's elders, by parents, teachers, and others. That means someone teaches him and he learns. Next is culture is continually changing. Culture changes when something new opens up new ways of living and when new ideas enter a culture as a result of travel or globalization. Next is language is a chief vehicle of culture. A specialized language pattern serves as a common bond to the members of a particular group or subculture. Although culture is transmitted in a variety of ways,
Language is one of the most important vehicles for perpetuating cultural patterns. Next is culture is integrated. Culture is integrated when individuals from one culture adopt practices from another culture without diminishing their own. Example is cultural foods, beliefs, arts to a different culture. Next, culture is dynamic. It represents the experiences, beliefs, norms, etc. of a living people. Next is culture is transmissive. It is the process of learning through which is the values, standards, norms, etc. are passed into and taught to individuals and groups. Next is cultures varies from society to society. Culture is everything made, learned or shared by the members of a society, including values, beliefs, behaviors, material objects. Culture is learned and it varies tremendously from society to society. Next is culture is gratifying. Means our needs, our food, shelter, clothing, and desires, our status, fame, money, etc. are all the examples which are fulfilled according to the cultural ways. In fact, it is defined as a process through which human beings satisfy their needs.
Functions of cultures. We will review the functions that cultures perform and assess whether cultures can be a liability for an organization. Ito yung kabuang konseptong sangkap sa pamumuhay ng tao or batayan ng kilos o gawin ng isang individuals or group. Ito ay isang komplikadong sistema ng ugnayan ng nagbibigay para kahulugan or paraan sa pamumuhay ng bawat individual or group sa isang lipunan. Norms perform some functions within an organization. Una, it has a boundary defining rules. It creates distinctions between one organization and another. Pangalawa, it conveys a sense of identity for organization members. Third, cultures facilitate the generation of commitment to something larger than one's individual self-interest. Fourth, it enhances the stability of social systems. Cultures is a social glue that helps hold the organization together by providing appropriate standards for what employees should see and do. Lastly, culture serves as a sense-making and control mechanism that guides. Elements of cultures. Cultures is transmitted to employees in many ways. The most significant are stories, rituals, materials, symbols, and language. There are some elements of cultures about which the manager of international operations should be aware of. The language, norms, symbols, values, attitude, rituals, and more. The first element of culture is language. It is a primary means used to transmit information and ideas. Language is one of the most important parts of cultures. Ito yung way para mag-intindihan tayong lahat. Imagine mo, paano kung wala yung language, paano kaya tayo magkakaintindihan? Knowledge of local language can help because it permits a clear understanding of the situation. Second, it provides direct access to local people. Lastly, understanding of implied meanings. Second element of cultures is norms. Cultures differ widely in their norms or standards and expectations for behaving. These are the guidelines of people are supposed to follow in their relations with one another. They are share rules that specify what is wrong, what is right, what is good, what is bad. Norms, tumutukoy ito sa mga kilos or gawin ng isang tao or ito yung nagsabing pamantayan ng isang individuals or group. In short, ito yung standards ng isang individual kung paano sila makitungo sa kanilang mga ginagalawang lipunan. Example is pagkikisama, pagrespeto sa mga taong nakapaligid sa'yo, pagtulong sa mga taong nangangailangan ng tulong. Norms are often divided into two types, the formal norms and informal norms. Formal norms established within written rules like close or college entrance exam requirements or school rules and etc. Informal norms, it does not have written rules but are expected to be followed. Katulad ng pagsisimba, pagmamano, susuot ng mga magagandang damit pag may occasion. Next, symbols. Every culture is filled with symbols of things that stand for something else, which often suggests various reactions and emotions. Bawat kultura ay may mga simbolo. Like katulad ng krus. Krus is a significant symbol of Christianity. The star and crescent, it's a significant of symbol of Islam. Some of symbols are actually non-verbal communication, habang ang iba ay mga material na bagay, katulad ng pagmamano. Next, values. Values determine how individuals will probably respond in any given circumstances. Ito yung gawain or kilos ng isang individual sa isang grupo. Katulad ng pagrespeto, pagiging honest, paggamit ng po at saka opo, pagtulong sa gawain sa bahay. Next, attitude is a persistent tendency to feel and behave in any particular way. Attitude is a way of feeling or opinion or acting towards a person, things or situations. Like, I believe that eating junk food is unhealthy. I'm scared in dog, I'm scared in snake, I'm scared mabagsak, mga ganon. Next, rituals. Rituals are practices or set of actions that are repeated in specific circumstances and with a specific meaning. They may be used in rites of passage, such as when someone is promoted or retires. Example nito yung sa Islam, yung pagbibigay ng zakat, sisimba 5 times a day. Example, birth ritual, wedding anniversary, holidays.
And now, let's proceed to the next elements of culture. Customs and manners. Customs are common and established practices. Manners are behaviors that are regarded as appropriate in a particular society. These indicate the rules of behavior that enforce ideas of right and wrong. Material culture. Another cultural element is the artifacts or material objects that constitute a society's material culture. It consists of objects that people make, like economic infrastructure, transportation, communication, and energy belong to economic infrastructure. Then, health, housing, and education systems belong to social infrastructure. And the last one is the financial infrastructure. In financial infrastructure, banking, insurance, and financial services is belong to this financial infrastructure. The next one is the education. What is education? Education influences many aspects of culture. Actually, culture is the interaccumulation of artificial objects, conditions, tools, techniques, ideas, symbols, and behavior patterns peculiar to a group of people possessing a certain consistency of its own and capable of transmission from one generation to another. Physical artifacts. What is physical artifacts? Okay. Physical artifacts, these are the tangible manifestations and key elements of organizational culture. The next one is the language, jargons, and metaphors. These elements of organizational culture play an important role in identifying a company's culture. Stories, myths, and legends. These are, in a way, an extension of organizational language. They epitomize the unwritten values and morals of organizational life. Ceremonies and celebrations. These are consciously enacted behavioral artifacts which help in reinforcing the organization's cultural values and assumptions. Behavioral norms. It's determine how the members will behave, interact, and relate with each other. Shared beliefs and values. In shared beliefs and values, all organizations have their unique set of basic beliefs and values, also called moral codes, shared by the most of its members. There are the mental pictures of organizational reality and form the basis of defining the organization's right or wrong. And now, let's proceed to the factors affecting the culture. There are so many ways of examining cultural differences and their impact on international management. Culture can affect technology transfer, managerial attitudes, managerial ideology, and even business government relations. Centralized versus decentralized decision making. In some societies, top managers make all important organizational decisions.
Hi, good morning everyone. So, factors affecting the culture. Safety versus risk. In some societies, organizational decision makers are risk averse and have great difficulty with condition of uncertainty. In others, risk taking is encouraged and decision making under uncertainty is common. So, safety versus risk, ito yung gumagawa ka ng decision kaagad-agad sa isang organisasyon pero hindi natin pinag-iisipan kung makakabuti ba or hindi ba tayo mapapahamak. Like example is yung kultura natin, gumagawa lang sila ng kanilang desisyon pero wala sa tamang pag-iingat at di nila iniisip kung makakabuti ba. So, next is individual versus group rewards. In some countries, personnel who do outstanding work are given individual rewards in bonuses and commissions. In others, cultural norms require group rewards and individual rewards are frowned on. So, sa ilang mga bansa, ang mga taong nagtatrabaho ng maayos is binibigyan sila ng bonus at commission bawat isa. Pero sa iba is Sa ibang culture naman is hindi sila sumasang-ayon dito. So next is informal versus formal procedures. In some societies, much is accomplished through informal means. In others, formal procedures are set forth and followed rigidly. So, sa informal versus informal procedure, sa ilang mga lipunan, mas marami ang gumagawa to. So, sa ilang mga lipunan, mas marami ang gumagawa through informal na pamamaraan because nagagawa nila yung mga gusto nila, or should I say, wala silang rules na sinusunod, parang ganun. So, sa formal naman is inilalahad nila at sumusunod sila ng maayos. Parang may mga rules silang sinusunod, parang may naghahandle sa kanila, like ganito, ganyan, gawin nyo para maging maayos ang pamamaraan nila. So, next is cooperation versus competition. Some societies encourage cooperation between their people. Others encourage competition between their people. So, dito naman, some societies is in-encourage nila ang kooperasyon sa kanilang mga tao. So, pero yung mga iba naman is nakikipagkompetensya sila mismo sa kanilang mga tao. Parang sila rin yung nag-aaway. So, next is high versus low organizational loyalty. In some societies, people identify very strongly with their organization or employer. In others, people identify with their occupational groups such as engineer or mechanics. So, sa high versus low organizational loyalty is some societies na ibang mga tao ay lubos sila nakikilala sa kanilang organization or employer, pero may mga ibang tao na kinikilala lang nila with their profession. Kung wala ka sa standard nila, parang wala silang paki sa'yo. Ganun yun. Sorry. Next is short-term versus long-term horizons. Some cultures focus most heavily on short-term horizons such as short-range goals of profit and efficiency. Others are more interested in long-range goals such as market share and technological development. So, sa short-term versus long-term horizon, some culture is nagpo-focus sila sa mga short-term horizon tulad ng mga maikiling layunin sa sakdita at yung kakayahan natin. So, pero may mga ibang tao naman ay mas interesado sila sa mga long-range goals kasi such as market share at yung pag-unlad ng teknolohiya. So, next is yun lang. So, sa goals and objectives naman is meron pa pala yung short-term stability versus innovation. So, the culture of some countries encourage stability and resistance to change. The culture of others puts a high value of innovation and change. So, stability versus innovation is sa culture ng some societies ay ini-encourage nila ang katatagan at kakayahan para sa pagbabago, pero sa iba naman is parang naglalagay sila ng mataas na halaga para sa kanilang pagbabago. Or should I say, parang pinagbabayad sila ng mataas na halaga. Ganun. So, yun, sana maintindihan. Next is goals and objectives. So, the culture of organization is also affected by its goals and objectives. The strategies and procedures designed to achieve these organization goals and objectives are also contribute to its cultures. So, ang culture of organization ay apektado na rin ng mga layunin. Pero, may mga pamamaraan na man para ma-achieve ang mga goals ng organization like ito yung language and dialect, religion, wealth, climate and weather, dressing, sense and clothes fashion, level of education and literacy, general living standards, employment regulation. Yan. So, next is importance of the culture study. The influence of society's religious, family, wait lang ha. The influence of society's religious, family, educational, and social system on consumers' behavior and their impact on marketing comprise a company's cultural environment. It will be difficult to overlook the importance of culture as a motivator of consumers. So important, mahirap sa isang marketer na magtagumpay kung hindi nila napapansin ang kahalagahan ng kultura as a motivator ng pag-uugali ng mamimili. So, example is, sa ating kultura, tumataas ang kakulangan sa oras dahil sa pagdaragdag ng bilang ng mga babaeng nagtatrabaho. Like me. Because of the current emphasis, inilalagay natin ang physical at mental development mental self-development. So, pero it is easy to state the general significance of culture, pero mas mahirap i-define ang term ng pangkalahatang pagtanggap. Ganun. So, that's all. Thank you. Sana maintindihan nyo kahit di naman